So welcome to the Data Friday. My name is Michael Olschimke. I'm the CEO of Scalefree. We have the session here every Friday, apparently, because of, we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions about Data 2.0, cloud computing, MVP stuff, data-driven applications, data mining, that kind of stuff, right? So all the questions in this space are allowed. You can use the chat here in the client if you want to raise a live question. You can use the Q&A function in the client. You can also raise your hand if you want to get essentially get voice, and then give you voice. And I'm also showing you a form, or a link at least to the form. After today's session, we can also raise your questions essentially via form, and it gives me some time to prepare essentially some slides, which I've done for today's session. If you receive multiple questions, I'm cherry picking. And if there will be no questions, I will talk about my little side project here. Haven't been for a while, no time for that as well. So it's good that you're asking questions, right? Good question is time box like 10 minutes. That's a good question, essentially, where I can answer the question within 10 minutes, essentially. All right, so let me just show you today's question. And this is about an article we wrote at the Scalefree blog about GDPR, called Still Struggling with GDPR. I have the link here for you, a short link, if you're interested. And this is essentially, and that's why I need to draw maybe something up today. There's some questions essentially on this blog article. The idea is this: when we have personal data, let's say we have customer records like here, where some of the attributes, first and last name, are of personal nature, and some of the attributes, let's say hair color or the city where they live, is of non-personal nature. The basic idea is quite simple. We split the descriptive attributes into different satellites. We perform a satellite split. And one satellite, this one here, captures those attributes of the customer which are classified as personal. And this satellite captures the attributes which are classified as non-personal. And then when the customer exercises the right to be forgotten, we have to delete the personal data only. There might be different data retention periods for this, okay? So ask your lawyers. So, but we need to delete the personal data attributes independently from the non-personal attributes. We want to reduce the customer record down to the non-personal attributes in the first place. And maybe later, if your lawyers tell you, you have to delete the non-personal data as well, but that's later. So by performing the satellite split, we essentially prepared an independent delete. We can now just delete the deltas of the customer who exercised the right to be forgotten in the personal satellite. That way, we get rid of the personal attributes, still keep the non-personal attributes in the other satellite. And then when you rebuild the pit table, what happens is, at least rebuild the pit table for the customer. What happens is, because this personal satellite doesn't know the business key anymore, it would activate the ghost record. So it goes on the default values: question mark for first name, question mark for last name, and then the hair color brown and from Hanover from the non-personal satellite. That's all you know about the customer after the right to be forgotten has been exercised. So that's the basic idea. The problem starts with when your business key in the customer hub is classified as a personal attribute. Where first of all, I would try. The first recommendation is that you try not to use a personal business key in the hub. So go for something else, to be honest. That's number one. So, and if you go for a surrogate key, so be it. But try to avoid personal business keys in the Data hub. You see in a second why. It's possible to solve. It's actually straightforward to solve. The problem is it's a bit more complicated. And I would like to reduce the complexity of the model. And that's why I would essentially recommend don't go for a personal business key, because it makes your model a bit more complicated. That's the only thing. But now let's say you have no other choice, or you say, who cares? Let's go for this business key here. In this case, what we do is we introduce artificial hubs essentially. Essentially, what we're doing is, first of all, the customer hub here contains the personal business key, the social security number or something, right? The tax ID, something like that. And one more comment. There's in some cases, you have a classification that every business key is of personal nature. I'm not a lawyer, so it is not legal advice, right? I mean, this is on YouTube, come on. But the thing is, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't agree with that, to be honest, from my perspective. I get why sometimes some organizations define every business key as a personal business key, because some organizations they essentially have the descriptive data still in the operation system, and you have to delete the data somehow. But then they argue, well, with the business key from the data warehouse, you could perform a lookup into the operational system, and that's where you find the descriptive data again. I'm not a lawyer, but the way I interpret the law is that you have to forget the personal data of this consumer when they exercise the right to be forgotten. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, non-legal advice, you have to delete the data from every source system. The organization as a whole has to forget about the customer, right? Not just the data warehouse. But hey, so the thing is, to solve the problem, they would have to delete the data in the operational system as well. What they're doing is they apply a patch somewhere else in your data warehouse, and that patch is on the wrong space, on the wrong location essentially. So it's still bleeding in the operational system. That's where you have to do something, not in your data warehouse. We can deal with this, but the patch that they apply is expensive for you guys, for the data warehouse guys here, right? So they have to solve this in the operating system, not in the data warehouse. In my opinion, you have to delete the personal data from every data location, from the backup, from operation systems, from the data warehouse, and so on, where you store personal data about these consumers, where the exercise right to be forgotten, and where you have to delete the data for the legal reasons, right? There might be reasons why you keep the data for a little longer, legal reasons. Okay, but sooner or later you have to get rid of the data. All right, so that's one thing. So try to avoid that situation. Use a non-personal business key in the hub, and if you have to use it, then we come to the solution. You see, it's a bit more complicated. Now, what we do is this: in the first place, we have the business key in the hub, the social security number. So be it, because we identify, apparently, no other choice. We identify the customers by the social security number. But then what we do is we introduce roles. We say, well, this customer, for example, can play a role here at our insurance company as a car insurance holder or as a healthcare insurance holder. And so the same customer can play two different roles. They could also be employees, for example, right? So there could be a third hub with an employee. And then what we do is we create artificial sequence IDs or artificial identifiers essentially in this hub. I wouldn't use a sequence, by the way. What I would use is you could use a sequence, but then you want to make sure that the order, how you issue these sequences, are independent of the order of those business keys here in the initial load. So you want to make sure you assign cryptographic random identifiers to the roles. There should be no relationship between the sequence here and the business key here, not even in the order of the initial load. The best way is essentially to use a UUID, version 4 or version 5. They are based on an SHA-1 value, on a random SHA-1 value, true randomness. And that's what I would go for. That's enough. You don't have to have more security. It just has to be a cryptographic random number. That's important. So again, a UUID version 4 or 5 is based on SHA-1s. That's what we typically use. Now, once you have to establish this random number, you essentially perform a link. So this customer plays a role in the car insurance business in your organization. So there's a relationship. This customer has a role and a relationship to the role. Same here for the healthcare business. You have a role for this customer in the healthcare business, and therefore a relationship between the customer and its role. And then instead of describing the customer social security number here, you add the satellites down to the roles. You only describe the roles. So there might be a satellite here with personal data on the car insurance role, and non-personal data, and so on, right? And when the customer exercises the right to be forgotten, let's say when they quit the healthcare policy, sooner or later, maybe because they exercise the right to be forgotten, or maybe because you have to purge data for other reasons, sooner or later you have no right to keep the data anymore. So what you do is the personal data anymore. So you delete the data here from the satellite, the deltas, just like as in the previous example. And you delete the link here. Once you deleted this link here, you still know we had customers in the healthcare business. They came from Hanover, had brown hair, but there's no relationship to the social security number anymore because the link is gone. And you don't have descriptive data who's behind that role. The first name, last name, it's gone. And then when the customer deletes or quits cancels the car insurance policy, you do the same on the left side. You delete the personal data from the private satellite here. You delete the link. And then you still know how many customers we had over time for the car insurance policies, where they came from, what haircut they had, and so on. But you don't know who's behind that role. And what we observe now is that there's no link anymore that's referring to the social security number. So apparently you have no right to keep it anymore. So you delete it. You delete it. You delete the social security number from the hub here. That's how we remove the data step by step. Now, I know some organizations, and let me just go through some questions now, because I think I answered some of them. So here's in the article, in the blog article, we essentially write the activity history is not traceable to the customer itself, and the main hub, customer hub, contains a personal business key. Does it imply that activity history is attached to the business specific hubs based on the artificial business keys? The activity history itself is not shown in the diagram of figure 2. So by activity history, I believe you mean the effectivity satellite, where you keep track of deletions and reintroducing the business key and so on. That could be attached to the customer hub with the social security number, because it only tells us from when to when the customer record with the social security number was in the operation system. Yeah, so that should be fine. So we can keep that, but you have to delete the data. Once you delete the business key, the social security number from the hub, then you also delete the deltas in the effectivity satellite, right? Because there should be no satellite that refers to a parent hash key that doesn't exist in the hub anymore. And that gives you the reason essentially to delete the data in the effectivity satellite. And this, I mean, once you don't know the social security number anymore, then you have to get rid of this data as well from when to when they introduce the key, essentially. So that should answer the first question here. So attach the effectivity satellite on the hub, if that is your question, to be honest. So attach it to the main hub, right, to the customer hub. And then there was a quote, furthermore, keep in mind, so that's essentially from the article again. Furthermore, keep in mind that deleting the business key only and keep the hash key does not result in GDPR compliance and does not meet the data 2.0 standard anyway, as the business key is used in link tables. Yeah, that's a bit, let me show you what we mean here. It's a bit ambiguous, yeah. As a recommended data practice is comment from the question taker. As a recommended practice, data 2.0 practice, where hashing brings improved load performance, a business key is not used directly in link tables. Correct. It's not used directly in link tables. That part is not good. It is the hashed value of the business key, correct, of a business concept represented in a hub that is used as a foreign key in a link. Yeah, correct. So that you're right. And this part here, the second part, as the business key is used in link tables, now the hash key of the business key is used in link tables. And what we mean by this whole example is quite simple. Let me share my whiteboard. The idea is this, what I know some organizations, what they've done is, I know some anti-patterns here, right? But people try essentially to solve this problem. And one organization, what they've done is, they have a hub, roughly with a hash key and a business key, right? And the load date record source, we don't care here for this for now. They have a business key A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Those are the hash keys. And then they have a satellite attached to it with some descriptive data. Now, they want to get rid of the business key, and they don't know this trick, which we discussed here. And so what they do is they update out the business key, let's say C, and or scramble it, encrypt it with whatever, right? So they just get rid of the business key because they realize if they delete the whole line, there is a satellite attached to the hub, and this satellite would refer to a hash key that's in a hub that doesn't exist in a hub anymore. And that's the challenge, right? So that's why they realize they can't delete the hash key because the hash key is being referenced by satellites and links and so on. So they just nullify the business key. But then I'm saying, well, that doesn't meet the requirements because you could argue this is like a logical delete sometimes. Well, people argue, not me. But the problem is for a logical delete, the effort to reconstruct the business key should be, or the personal data should be extremely high or not feasible, essentially. And so it's not worth it for you to even attempt. Now, what they say is, well, because we know leveraging the hash key for some security purposes, because deleting data, let's use some super secure hash algorithm. Let's use SHA 384 or something, right? So, which nobody can break. Well, I'm telling you, you can break it easily, actually, because the thing is this. In your data vault design, never rely on the hash key or hash diff for security purposes because it's easy to break. You would argue a hash function is a mathematical one-way function, and it's true. To break a hash algorithm, you have to use a brute force attack, where you essentially calculate random inputs as long as you have calculated every potential output for at least once. That gives you a rainbow table, and you could use that as a lookup table. But I'm telling you that the security of the hash key is actually not based on the number of potential outputs. Let's say 2 to the power of 384 in SHA-3, right? So that's not true actually for a hash key. For a hash key, the security is based on the potential inputs actually, because think about this: your business keys, whatever it is, let's say employee numbers, they have a common structure. Every business key follows a certain structure. For example, at Scalefree, we use E numbers, E minus, and then at least 4 digits. That's it. That's our employee numbers. Here, in this case, I simplify it a bit, right? So the business keys here are very simple, A, B, C, D, and so on, right? One character, let's say. So which means that I could easily create a lookup table with all the potential business keys, A, B, C, or in your case, your business key just created in Excel, essentially, doesn't matter. And then for every potential business key, you just calculate a hash key. And to be honest, the data volume is so low, don't expect any hash key collisions here. There will be only one, it will be a clear mapping, essentially. That's it. So once I have this lookup table, I can just do a reverse lookup. So give me the hash key, I perform the lookup, and I will give you exactly the business key that has to be here, essentially. So it's easy to retrieve the business key for a hash key. That's a problem, right? We can do this in your spreadsheet processing application of your choice, essentially, Excel, whatever, Google Sheets, and so on. You can do this essentially on the side. Maybe I'm a bit of exaggerating, but that's what it is. So this is an anti-pattern. Don't follow this pattern. It's not going to work, right? You can easily retrieve the business keys for this. So here's the question. How do you uniquely identify the customers in the artificial hubs using the random number? Well, you have the link, right? So you know that the role, the unique ID, is related to the social security number. And you can use this knowledge when loading the satellites. And that's the other disadvantage. The model becomes more complicated, right? And the loading process is a bit more complicated as well, because you have dependencies now. You have to also load the hubs the hubs again first, and then those links afterwards, and so on. So there's a certain loading order. But then you have the link, and you can use the link to find out how these roles are related to the social security numbers. Well, only as long as the right to be forgotten has not been exercised. When that happens, we don't know anymore that this role ID was related to the social security number, even though you might still have it because the customer is still in the other business, right? Active. They're still of the other policy. Fine. But you don't know that this role has been related to this social security number. So when the customer decides 3 months later, after the right to be forgotten has been exercised and performed in your data warehouse, so the link is gone essentially, and the descriptive data. And when the customer decides to again create a new policy with your organization, well, so be it. This person gets a new role because we forgot that this role was assigned to the social security number, essentially. That's the idea. And that's the requirement. So there's no chance that you can assign the old UUID to the new, to the existing social security number when the link should be recreated. A new role ID would be essentially issued. That's the idea. The customer plays a new role in the same business area, essentially. All right. So I fully agree on this one here. If I'm sharing. And then should the artificial key preferably originate in each business domain? Yes. Meaning its source? No. Yeah, right. So here's the point. Meaning its source system resides in each business domain and the artificial key is delivered to the data warehouse. Now, so we generate the artificial ID in the data warehouse. Yeah, that's it essentially. Yeah, and the key is not in the application. I mean, the application itself, the operational system, doesn't even know this artificial ID. It's really it only exists in the data warehouse, essentially. That's it. In the case of artificial, yeah, okay, so that's the idea. So it's being generated in the data warehouse. That's the idea. Okay, cool. Good question. We'll most probably attach this video here to the article. I'll let my team know, and then yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, if you have a blog article where you struggle as well, right? Not just GDPR, then just let us know. If you have a question like this, use the form here, sfr.ee/dbfriday. That can be used. Oh, let me just check here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, use this form where you can also type in your questions, upload some pictures if you want. This question taker here added some pictures, which I added here in the slide from the blog essentially as well. And check out also the other webinars from Scalefree, scalefree.to/webinars. We have one webinar on Warescape and one on DBT at the moment. They are once a month by tool experts at Scalefree. And yeah, they're also worth to watch essentially. And there's also recordings of the sessions. All right, cool. Yeah, Eric, thanks. Enjoy your weekend as well, guys. And yeah, if you can't wait until next Friday, join the Data Innovators community, where you can also ask questions in a forum style forum or community. And where the Scalefree guys and the Ignition Data guys, they essentially jump in and answer questions as well. All right. Thanks for joining today. Enjoy your weekend. It's very sunny here. It gets very sunny here. And we have a children's birthday here. The youngest kid from us, Finja, she's turned 4. So will be fun event, fun weekend. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining and see you next Friday.